In this video, I want to continue our conversation about relationships and compare that against an entity relationship diagram. Now, first off, let's cover a little bit more about relational design here. I'm going to go to Manage, Database, and we're on our Relationship tab already. I'm going to zoom in here real quick. As you remember from the last video, ID Contacts automatically creates a unique serial number for each record that it contains. Over here, ID Contact does not automatically create any sort of serial number itself. It's just a blank text field. For this reason, FileMakers identified this as a one-to-many relationship. And this gets into the idea of different types of relationships, which are important in kind of understanding the structure of a database. Think about it like this. As we talked about in the first relational design video, a contact can have one or more invoices. In fact, if you have good customer service, hopefully your contacts come back and visit your business many times and buy many things, which means that each contact or customer will have many invoices. So you want there to be many related invoices for a contact. And that's what this little indicator right here means. It's a one-to-many type relationship. Now, if this was a straight line, straight across, without this split here or crow's feet, then it would be a one-to-one relationship, meaning that one record over here would only ever relate to one record on the other side. Now, in this relational situation right here, this is what we would refer to the parent over here, the parent side, the parent of the relationship, and this is the child. And you'll hear that referred to a number of times by different people. Even in this training, we'll have a parent and child relationship and maybe a grandchild relationship, because you can actually connect additional table occurrences here and here and here, and they can string across. Because what if we had table occurrence line items and then products? You can do all sorts of things like that. That's the whole point of what relationships are. Now let's take a look at a little bit more complicated relationship diagram. Now this relationship diagram is from another FileMaker solution, but I want to point something out here. There are two what we call table occurrence groups here, or TOGs, T-O-G. This is one table occurrence group here, and one table occurrence group here. Now what's really important to know and understand is that table occurrences really are views. They're perspectives. In fact, in other SQL databases, table occurrences are really analogous of what they call views in those other systems. Now keep in mind, a layout has to exist or be attached to a table occurrence, which means that that layout has a perspective or has the view of a specific table occurrence. Imagine that you can shrink yourself down and stand on the relational diagram like this. You can only stand on TOs. And from those TOs, you can only see things that are connected with the lines. But you can only see them through the relationships. Does that make sense? So if you're standing here at customers, you can see through these relationships the customer's address for billing, or you can see through the customer address for shipping if you wanted to, or you could see through the ID to the orders. The whole idea is that if you have a layout and you drop it and it's attached to this table occurrence right here, and you have that perspective, you can only see things through those lines or through that relationship. And when I mean see things through there, that's the data you have access to. That's the data your fields have access to on that screen. And if you have a script that's running and it's in the context of that layout from that table occurrence, that script only has access to data through those relationships at that moment in time. That's super important. As we talk about in writing scripts, perspective is everything. You have to know the context of where you're at and what you can see. And if you have a hard time imagining that you drop your little person like a Lego guy on the relational diagram and imagine what he can actually visually see. It really helps. Also understand that if you're standing over here, there's no way that you can see anything on this lower table occurrence group because they're not cross-connected. Another important point to note is that there are no circular references. What I mean by circular reference. Well, if I try to draw a relationship between here and here, FileMaker won't let me. Why won't it? Well, if I was standing here once again, and I was looking at this data right here, I would have the choice of getting the data through this series of relationships in this direction, or I'd have the choice of looking down this way and jumping through these relationships in this direction. In fact, strictly speaking, I could see myself by looking through one side and having it go all the way around and come around and hit me in the side of the head. That's called a circular reference. You can never have that on a FileMaker relational diagram. So all the lines have to have a definite beginning and end. So just keep that in mind. Relational diagrams can get more crazy and complicated, and rapidly they can grow out of control. Here's a little screenshot of a relational diagram that's kind of running amok. And this one's actually not too bad yet, but I've seen some that are really ugly. Now notice, this is one giant table occurrence group. And table occurrence groups ideally should be kept somewhat small and cuddly. It'll make your life a whole lot easier. But just suffice it to say that a giant spider web of table occurrences is not in your best interest. And what do I mean by everything being connected? Well, imagine that we drop ourselves on this table occurrence right here. I can actually see all the way over here. I can see through this relationship, across here, across here, across here, across through here, and through here. That's like 5, 6, 7, 8 relationships, whatever it is. That's a lot of relationships. And if you're trying to manage a layout, trying to get data to here from way over here is going to be a giant, painful process. In fact, the mental gymnastics you're going to have to go through to figure that out will be pretty Herculean. It's always better to keep things small and cuddly. Now that we've talked about relationship diagram a little bit, I want to show you what the industry uses to design and model relational databases. Here I'm accessing a free online app called Draw.io. This is a free online application that you can fire up that's really helpful in drawing entity relationship diagrams, or ERDs. Now, ERDs, while they look somewhat similar to the relational diagrams with TOs that you saw within FileMaker, ERDs are decidedly not the same thing. First off, in the relational diagram in FileMaker, those are table occurrences, where a single table might have several occurrences of itself on the screen at one time. For example, contacts TOs could be on the screen 4, 5, 10, 20 times. There's no rule against that. Now, there's only one contacts table in FileMaker, but a table occurrence, it occurred, could be on that diagram multiple times. Now, an ERD doesn't work that way. An ERD represents the fundamental base tables, and therefore there's only one of each of those on screen at a time ever, right? Because there's only one contacts base table. We're not talking about table occurrences. This is the base table right here. Let me go and zoom in here a little bit. Now, the idea behind modeling with an ERD is to sit down and really do some planning about designing your database before you build it all out. Now, you can throw the database together kind of ad hoc as you go, but it may get kind of messy and it won't be the most efficient use of your time. So sitting down in advance and sketching this out might be the way to go. Now, of course, like we said, we're doing this online, but frequently I'll find myself in a customer meeting with a pen and paper, maybe a ruler, scribbling vigorously, and then asking the customer questions to make sure that I understand their business model. So let's say that the business model allows the customers to have projects, aka jobs. Some customers call them jobs, some customers call them projects. Either way, projects or jobs can have one or more invoices. That makes sense. So we go over here and we can specify that we want to cross-connect. So I come down here to Entity Relation and I turn this. And over here are all the different types of indicators of the different types of relationships that you can have. Now, of course, we talked about one-to-one and one-to-many. And of course, there's other sorts of relationships as well, where you can have a relationship that it's one-to-one and it's mandatory or minimums and that kind of thing. And you can get overly convoluted with that if you like, or overly organized. My goal is to simply sketch things out as quick as I can. So Here's my one-to-many right here. I'm going to click on that and drag it out here. And there's my one-to-many. I'm going to go ahead and connect the end right here to projects. And I connect the other end to invoices. Now, this is in no way connected to FileMaker. I'm not designing a FileMaker database right now. I'm simply modeling with an ERD. I have a one-to-many invoices. What does this mean? One project can have many invoices. Well, that makes sense. Might only have one, it might have none, but it certainly could have 4 or 5. Now, this is where things take an interesting turn. Remember we said that a relational diagram cannot have a circular reference, but you could put table occurrences on there from a table multiple times on a relational diagram. Here, these are base tables, and they can only be put on screen once. Well, we also know that a project can belong to a contact, right? Makes sense? In fact, let's say for the purposes of our discussion here that a single contact will run a single project. Okay, that makes sense. But the contact might have more than one project, so it's a one-to-many again, certainly. So we're going to have to drag this out one more time. I'm going to drag this end up here. And I've cross-connected it. Now, if we were in FileMaker, this wouldn't be allowed because this is a circular reference. But in entity relationship diagrams, that's expected. That's normal because we know that this contact's base table can only be on here once. And we know that it has to talk to both invoices and to projects, which makes sense. So understand the difference between ERDs and FileMaker's relational diagram. They look similar, but they're very, very different. ERDs show base tables, and the base table can only be on screen once. The relational diagram is much more of a dynamic, active diagram because it directly affects the operation of FileMaker. The boxes that are on the relational diagram are table occurrences. It's an occurrence of a base table, and they can be on there more than once. But there cannot be any circular references.